Hey, Derek. How you
Hey,
doing?
how are you?
Not too bad, eh?
Good.
Um, so yeah, I'm not in the studio today, so I have no idea what the lighting looks like, the sound sounds like, or anything like that. And I'm also on my laptop camera, so I hope all comes out good. But I absolutely wanted to tell you this part of the story because it is wild.
You look and sound great from where I'm sitting. Dispense from any thoughts of studio backdrops. It's your storytelling that people come for.
Yeah, and trust me, this one is wow. It is like I said before. This is something that I have long believed to be, to hold the most water. Um, Nicole Engelbrecht, who wrote the book on Sizzlers, she is less convinced. Um, however, have experience with this guy, but we'll get into that.
Mm-hmm.
So I firmly believe that this is not this that isn't total hogwash.
Okay.
So who are we talking about? This is the guy we are. Um, Again, Amy is not here, so I'm having to run the show myself, which is interesting. So this is the guy that we are referring to. His name is Juan Duval Ace. Okay. Now,
Looking positively harmless there with a little kitty cat.
Okay. So first, I want to just say that this is entirely based on my theory. I do not.
Right.
I have no hardened facts for this. It is purely based on the most logical story. And unfortunately, like I said, I think it was in episode 1. We will. The nice part about what we do is we don't really need to stick to the facts that can be proven in a court of law. We can explore avenues that may not have quite the same amount of evidence going for them, but seems to match the facts, the evidence more accurately than some of the other conspiracy theories. So I just want to get that out there that this is based on plausibility, not proof. Okay, so let us get into who Juan Duval Ace is. Okay, so he was born Ludovicus Ace in 1968. And he's gone by many, many aliases, including Neil Watson, Sean Thompson, David Baxter, Ludovicus, Ludi, Sky, and also Jason. Now, Jason is who I knew him as. Okay, so he went by a whole bunch of aliases, and I knew him as Jason because I used to work for him as a sex worker.
It's no surprise to you, I'm sure, that a number of aliases triggers great suspect.
Yeah, no. To be honest, in the industry, you tend to use an alias, and often, if you want to disappear, or if you had a bad experience at one agency, you would change your name and go and work elsewhere.
Right.
There wasn't. It was very much a I can't think of the word now, but yeah, basically, for want of a better term, a transient type of industry. Where
back in the days before social media, when you could go 2 towns over, change your name, and reinvent yourself.
There we go. Right. Okay. So he had a pattern of reinvention, deception, control. There was a lot of unpleasantness about him. He was a dodgy character in the sex work industry, and so we just kind of okay. So, but yes. So,
what does dodgy character within the industry mean?
Okay, so basically, well, we're going to get into some of the red flags now regarding his time in the sex work industry, but he just you know the whole story about honor amongst thieves. Well, there's that.
Yeah.
There's usually that in the industry too. He did not. He used to go to war with people in the industry. He used to fight, constantly be at odds with with his competition, rather
Right.
than working together like like the other studio owners
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
But okay, so in the early 90s, he got a job at the Kroonstad prison. He was working where he was an admin clerk in the mess hall. Okay. Um, and he struck up a friendship with one of the guys there, Sergeant Henny Schmidt. And it was rumored that they were in a relationship, but there's no evidence of that. Anywho, at one stage, I think it was in 93, I think it was 92 or 93. I don't have the data here written down, unfortunately. But he then left Kroonstad prison suddenly. And not long after, Sergeant Schmidt was discovered murdered in the kitchen of the prison. That murder has never been solved. But like I said, around that time, that is when Ludi, as he was going by at that stage, disappeared. He basically just quit and went on his way. And like I said, it's that murder has never been solved. It is still an open investigation. But just after that, records show that Ludovicus Ace then changed his name to Juan de Val, LT, just the letters LT, Ace. Now, we don't actually know why or what that LT stands for. It may very well just be a vanity title along the lines of lieutenant. Who knows? But he changed his name just after the murder. So, yeah, it kind of... and so he then moved to Gauteng. And in Gauteng, he started running a brothel which he called Class of 95. This was in 96 that he started it. He named it Class of 95 to give the impression that the boys that were working for him were fresh out of school. Okay, fresh out of high school.
That would not work today. 30 years
now,
down.
Now the boys who are fresh out of high school want to go into OnlyFans.
Well, Class of 95 would be the senior crowd.
Yeah, very much so. So yeah, anyway, so he started Class of 95, and every year he would change its name: Class 96, Class 97, 98, 99. So it went on. Like I said, I started working for him when he was running Class of 96. So this was in 1997. He had two houses. One was in Pretoria East, big manor house out in Pretoria East, and another was in a townhouse in Johannesburg in Melrose. I didn't last very long at Class of 96 because I didn't like him.
Were you in
dodgy.
Melrose or Pretoria?
The boys were moved between the two.
Gotcha.
So if we got a booking in Johannesburg, he would drive us through to Johannesburg, where we would do the booking, and then we'd just stay at that venue until we were needed back in Pretoria, and then we would go back to Pretoria.
Gotcha.
And so we were constantly being moved around. But like I said, I wasn't there for very long, and I didn't really like him. He was just okay. So how the sex industry worked back when I was in it, you would charge a set fee, or the agency would set a fee for an hour's booking, and then the agency would take 50%, and the monsieur would take 50%. But then you would also get charged for your ads in the paper. You would get charged for your accommodation. You get charged for all sorts of things. Okay.
Right.
But he would also impose punitive fines for even the minor, even the slightest infraction of whatever he decided you'd done wrong. Okay.
Mhm.
And so that already annoyed me because we were trying where I was making a fair amount of money at other agencies. I was making like a quarter of that, at like between half and a quarter of what I was making before.
Mhm.
And so and the other thing is he gave us all pages. Back in this is back in 97. So
Oh,
for the days.
pagers. Yeah.
So he gave us all pages, and then he would use the pages to send out messages to the network that was kind of aimed at humiliating or causing the other messieurs to then engage in bullying of the messieurs. It was just a really, really unpleasant environment, and like I said, I stayed for 3 months, and I was gone. After I left, I went into the industry. I was in the industry. I worked at various places. I worked on my own, but I didn't have much to do with him. But he was my housemate that I was living with, who I actually met through my work with Jason, as I knew him. Basically, someone hired me, and then someone and I just actually didn't get along at all. We weren't a very good match with regard to the business, but we became really good friends outside of the business. And so when I was between homes, he said, "I have a spare room. Come and live with me." So he was still using Jason's services after I left. So I kind of still had sort of an ear to the ground of what he was doing, and he was just there was just problems with him. In I think it was early 99. Oh, no. It was in late 98. He registered the Gay and Lesbian Alliance political party with the IEC, which is the Independent Electoral Commission, as a then. And he registered this party, but he never paid his registration fees. He just submitted his details. But around just after that, there was an ad in the paper, in the Star newspaper, saying that Ace was running a brothel in Greenside, which is a rather upmarket suburb of Johannesburg. And the neighbors had complained, and Con went to war and said, "I will sue you. How dare you say that I'm running a brothel from my home?" So the Star went into their classified section and went, "Here are your ads."
Yeah, that you paid for.
So here's your ads. They're linked to the phone number that's linked to that address. So bring on the lawsuit.
So you're painting the picture of somebody who is self-centered, not just self-centered, but brazenly self-centered.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
So he threatened to sue. They said, "Oh, bring it on," and suddenly he was convinced otherwise.
Yeah, right.
Then, as the national elections were coming closer and closer, because it generally happens around the middle of the year, every 5 years from 94. So there was one in April 94. This one was around May-ish. 99. And so as it was coming closer, the IEC was going, you need to pay us your registration fee. And all of a sudden he said, oh, no, I don't have the money. My house burnt down. And all the money that I was going to pay for the registration fee, which I don't know how much it was back then. I know it was maybe a few thousand, but I don't think it was a ton of money. But all the money I had to pay the registration fee burnt down in the house fire. For such a controversial figure, do you honestly think that the papers would not report on a house fire of a house belonging to Juan de Val Ace, or being rented to Juan de Val Ace? Nothing. There was no fire. He was just. I think he was just hoping that they wouldn't ask him for the money.
Right. What a liar.
So yes. Anyway, so he then withdraws his registration withdraws his intent to contest the 1999 elections. But he's still saying, "Oh no, I have a political party. I have a political party." But then in November 1999, a booking comes in for a 19-year-old monsieur at a hotel in Arcadia in Pretoria, and this monsieur is taken to the hotel, walks in there. The guy says, so you here for the session? And yes, how much is it? Oh, it's 190 Rand for the hour. And what do you do? Well, I just give you a massage, and then we can discuss extras afterwards, as the script goes.
Right.
And the extras will be, that would cost more. And they go, oh, what do you mean by extras? And he goes, and then the CEO goes into, okay, I'll do this and I'll do that, but I don't do this, and that kind of thing. Okay. And that allowed the police to pounce, and they charged into the room, and they arrested the guy for solicitation. Mm-hmm. Now, back in 1999, they, like I said, I think if I remember, it was in episode 2. I said that the cops they didn't actually have an issue with prostitution. They just didn't like the fact that it was prostitution. It was a man offering sex work services to to another man. Mm-hmm. These days, they couldn't give a shit, to be honest. They really couldn't. It's still technically illegal, but it's not really. It's most police officers will turn a blind eye unless it's obviously like you working the street. And then it's obvious, and so then they may be a little more harassing. But so they arrested this guy, and they said they're actually working on a tip that the owner of the brothel is running underage boys and creating child pornography. So Jason, his boyfriend at the time, and this monsieur are all taken into custody, and the house is searched, where they found they took hold of they took possession of Jason's laptop. They found porn videos. They found poppers, which amyl nitrate, which wasn't necessarily an illegal drug, but it was a controlled substance. And so they took all this in, and he was then they went after him on the child porn and underage pimping charges. What came of that? There is no record of it. But not long after that, Jason said, "Okay, I'm pulling out of all my business interests in the Pretoria house, which is the only brothel he had left. and I'm going off to Cape Town. However, at the same time, he was accused of blackmail. Now, he had a business associate who said that he was actually going to go into business with Jason, and that he had come to learn that Jason was taking photos of the clientele, of the high profile clientele, and then using it as blackmail.
Oh yeah.
To against against these entertainers and politicians and preachers and all that.
That'll keep the revenue coming in.
There we go. And Jason Juan decided to retaliate by accusing this associate of providing his boys with drugs. And he then also launched into a harassment campaign of threatening calls, texts, fax. Okay, this was back in 1999, so faxes were still a thing. And basically just making this guy's life a living hell, harassing his friends, his family. It was just, but this was his modus operandi. So, but Jason then pisses off down to Cape Town, and which makes sense because that's near Parliament, so it makes sense that he would want to be close to Parliament if he's starting a political party. And he then he tells the press that the GLA has over 60,000 members. No proof of that was ever
60,000.
60,000 members. No proof of that was ever discovered. It is actually believed that Juan de Val Ace's political party was one man in a fax machine. That's it. So yeah, there were also a whole bunch of other scandals, which I actually want to just run through quickly, but because before we actually get to his involvement in, well, what I believe is his involvement in Sizzlers. So he started through his media liaison, David Baxter. Now you'll remember I mentioned David Baxter earlier, as one of Juan Ace's aliases. Through David Baxter, he started the gay blood wars. Now, back in 2006, 2004, South Africa still had old laws on the books that didn't allow gay men, basically dating back from the AIDS crisis, didn't allow gay men to donate blood. Okay,
right.
So what the GLA decided is that they were going to stage a protest, and they were going to have gay men lie on the forms to say that they haven't had intercourse in the last 6 months or 12 months, whatever it was, and then donate blood. And then rumors were sent that these men had lied on the forms. They had sex in the 6 months. They had unprotected sex in the 6 months. And they even said that one person that actually donated blood had full-blown AIDS. Ooh. The belief was that they would want to get rid of the entire batch of donated blood, which would have caused an absolute fucking crisis.
Right.
It turned out none of that was true. It was just another, let me get into the papers. Also, then in 2006, a website went live called SA Crime Expo, which was run by a person by the name of Neil Watson, yet another one of Jason's aliases, Juan's aliases, where especially violent crimes would be cherry picked, and information would be enhanced, and the really rough aspects of the case would be highlighted, and anything that didn't quite serve the narrative would be discarded or swept under the rug. but it was basically the idea was to make South Africa seem like an absolute hellhole of violence and total back to the whole white genocide bullshit. Where the new multiracial government was targeting poor white people. As you, like I said in
Like today.
in the last video, white genocide is an absolute fucking myth.
Right.
But yes, anyway, the site was actually removed. It was taken down due to the amount of racist comments that were left. It was taken down, but for some reason, it's even now back up. You can still go to you can still look for SA Crime Expo on WordPress, and it's there. So somehow it's been restored. But one of the people that actually went after the site when it was taken down was a politician by the name of Simon Grindrod. Now, Simon Grindrod was the provincial leader for the Independent Democrats. Now, the Independent Democrats, it's now a defunct party. Was started by Patricia Law, and there was then merged into the Democratic Alliance before she split again and started up Good. But Simon Grindrod was he basically went after them and accused the site of fraud, laid fraud charges, and demanded to know where the ad revenue for the website had gone. This put Simon on Juan's radar because a year later, a new blog was started. That was launched by a former sex worker by the name of Sky. It outed 16 South African celebrities, including a former South African rugby player, a well-known preacher, 2 entertainment critics, a famous South African entertainer, an actor, 2 fashion gurus, and of course, Simon Grindrod. And Sky threatened to release another 34 names in the future. These names were never released, but I have specifically not mentioned any of the names because I'm not about to. But a lot of these stories that went onto there, I had first heard about when I was staying with Jason,
Right.
when I was working with Jason, and I can actually confirm that at least some of them were true. Now, it's widely believed again that Sky was another of Juan de Val Ace's aliases, and considering that he was accused of blackmail back in 1999, it's not surprising that this is just another one of his many money spinners.
Right.
Okay.
Scams.
Yeah. So he did appear in court on charges of on the fraud charges, and he, according to some sources, he appeared in court on regarding the sex blog, but neither of those cases seem to have gone anywhere. He was also fingerprinted in 1999. In 2009 for the 1990 the early 90s Kroonstad prison murder. He was fingerprinted, but nothing seems to have come of that. But let's get back to that. Why I believe nothing ever came of that. So now let's go back because we've jumped around a bit, but I want to get back to the Sizzlers thing. He moved down to Cape Town in post 99, and he basically tried to get his face in front of the camera at any possible opportunity. So the bombings at Blah Bar and Bronx, he was there. Sizzlers, he was there. He went to war with the Triangle Project. He went to war with the Equality Project, which are 2 queer organizations in Cape Town. And he was just, whenever there was anything in the press or on television relation to the queer community, Juan's face would be splashed all over the TV. But he really had a feud with Aubrey Otkar, who owns Sizzlers. Now, I don't know why they went to war, but Aubrey wasn't one to back down. Okay, he basically just said, fuck you. I'm not going to take your shit. And Juan didn't like that at all. He didn't like to be challenged, and so he would. So I believe that he saw Aubrey, or Eric, as he was known in the industry, as someone that needed to be taught a lesson. And then I think I don't think he actually did lay a charge of or a complaint regarding Sizzlers with the city of Cape Town, saying that they had that the business wasn't operating with a license, which, as you remember, I said, you don't get a license for operating a brothel,
Right?
Okay, considering it is technically an illegal business.
Yeah.
But he laid a charge of he laid a complaint against them with the city council. He also accused Aubrey of drug trafficking and exploitation of his staff. Now, both of these things seem to have followed Jason. It's almost like projection the whole way along, because I do know that when I worked at Class of 96, drugs were never a problem to get my hands on, and I used to use excessively because it was a way of actually getting my mind away from what I was doing. Okay, but I don't recall ever getting drugs directly from Jason. I just knew that they were always available.
Right.
So he accused Aubrey of drug trafficking and exploitation, which are both things that had been leveled against him. But also, in the wake of the Sizzlers Massacre, the manager from one of the rival studios called the Barracks actually said that he and Aubrey worked together to prevent get drugs out of the industry in Cape Town. So those two don't tie up. Anyway, why he went to war, I have no idea. My theory is that he was trying to get Aubrey to fuck off so he could step in and basically take over, and basically take over what was left of Sizzlers with regard to the boys, the venue, etc., and basically restart his business, his brothel, his brothel keeping. He was also that's what I feel his motivation possibly could have been. Again, I just want to reiterate, this is my theory. No, I have no evidence for this. Okay, so let's get into the mastermind theory itself. He lived, according to Juan, right next door to Adam. They according to Juan, he and Adam stayed on the same floor in adjoining flats. Okay, so it's very likely that he could have planted the seed in Adam's mind and said, just keep my name out of your mouth.
Yeah.
And so Adam then came up with the other person, this David character, as a stand-in for Juan. Juan was not opposed to intimidation. He was a big man. Okay, he stood 6'2". He had broad shoulders. He wasn't a pushover, but and he had a very brazen, very brash attitude, and so he would to intimidate someone, it was something that he tried to do often, and there is a good chance that he could have threatened Adam's fiance Adele. There was after Adam was arrested, Adele said that she broke off the engagement and basically walked away, but she still stayed in contact with Adam's mother. And so Jason could have still exerted some sort of control over Adam by saying, if you say anything, I'll go after your mom. There was no explanation of the strange phone calls. Now, Jason made a claim that he phoned Sizzlers that night. Nobody said that the landline phone rang, but a phone call did come in. So, did he say that he phoned Sizzlers as a way of, explaining why a call had come in? Yeah, again, that just didn't make sense to me. He also, again, like I said, he inserted himself into the situation. If you actually look, if I can find it, this article here, there, in the top corner below 7 die, that is Juan Duval Ace in the paper.
Wow,
that is him. He basically made himself available to to the press, and he was there, and he was constantly trying to come up with all these stories, like we spoke about yesterday, where he was just throwing shit against the wall.
Yeah, an informal pundit almost.
Sorry?
An informal pundit who was some sort of informal expert or community expert.
Absolutely. So he could have done all of this. He also claimed that there was a home that he had been threatened in his own home. And I'm going, because of who he is, because of what I know about him, I would not put him past him to have staged that home invasion. He then claimed that he got onto a conference call with the GLA leadership, and they said that he needs to get out of Cape Town for his own safety. Oh my God, I'm if you recall, it was like, I feel so guilty because people were after me. And yet a week later, he was able to attend the funeral without worry, where he then made a spectacle, accusing the ANC of political shenanigans.
Clearly a narcissist who was
Yes.
A pathological liar.
Yeah, and so he tried to get into the story as much as possible, and having Aubrey out of the way would have basically paved the way for him to just slide in. His political party was going fucking nowhere. He wasn't getting anywhere with regard to the community. So the one thing that did make him money was brothel keeping, and so I believe that he was going in there, wanting to go back into it. I believe that he planted the seed in Adam's head. Adam then spoke to Trevor and planted the seed about a robbery. And that is what Trevor was going there for. They were going to rob the place. Adam, however, had other instructions. Because if you look at how stupid the mistakes they made were,
right,
it's almost like they were following a plan that wasn't theirs.
Right. They weren't thinking about the bigger picture.
So I believe that that Adam had a plan, and his plan was to get rid of Aubrey, either to scare him, or if that didn't work, to take care of him.
Do you think
And
Adam would have turned on Trevor at some point had it continued?
I think Adam was very relieved when Trevor shot Gregory Berghaus,
Right.
because then he had leverage.
Right.
I don't think that shooting Gregory Berghaus was in the plan, but also Gregory Berghaus attacking them was not on the cards either.
Yeah.
And I think that when the attack happened, when Greg was shot, they decided, okay, now they're going to need to shoot everyone. There can't be anybody left. And that's when Adam went rogue and deviated from the plan.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Adams was told to take out anybody other than Aubrey if necessary.
Right.
So neither of them said anything about the mastermind after their arrest, but there have been many whispers, and these whispers have gone on right up until today. As for where Juan is, after his fingerprints were taken in connection with the Kronstadt murder, the Kronstadt prison murder, he went very quiet. He tried to join COPE, which is another political party, Congress of the People. He tried to join COPE, and they basically said no. And then he disappeared. No trace of him has been found.
Really?
There is no social media presence. There is no face in the papers. There is no death certificates that I can find. There is nothing. He has disappeared completely.
Where is he?
I am of the opinion that he crossed someone and is now in a shallow grave somewhere on the West Coast or in the Karoo.
Mm-hmm.
I do not believe that he is still alive. I spoke about him in my podcast back in 2021, I think it was 2021. Yeah, on this. And I actually said to him, Juan, if you are listening, come set the record straight. Now, he was a litigious fucker. He would have come after me. No questions asked.
Yeah.
He would have come after me. And there was not a peep.
So he's either had the daylight scared out of him or he's had the life taken out of him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is kind of the ultimate, the saying lately is, fuck around and find out. Well, he seems to be one of those characters who fucked around and found out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
So yes, like I said, I have no hard proof that he was involved in Sizzlers.
He's not going to knock on my door here, is he?
No, I don't think he'll be able to get out of the country.
Good.
But there's no proof that he was involved in Sizzlers that I can that would have withstood courtroom scrutiny.
Wow.
But the person he is makes this, for me, the most plausible theory as to what actually happened.
Well, that changes the entire scope of what we've talked about thus far. And it becomes, not a two-person robbery, but a larger conspiracy.
Exactly.
Wow.
So yeah, that's us.
That's the Mastermind Conspiracy.
Yep.
Huh.
So thank you for letting me get this one off my chest.
Well, as always, it's great hearing you weave a tale. There's so much detail and so much insight, real life insight and connection that comes through you. Um, I know that's what our audience enjoys. It's certainly what I've enjoyed, sitting this close and listening to these things one on one.
Yeah. No, I have enjoyed telling this tale, but I'm going to be honest. I'm glad that we're done.
I
This
look,
is a difficult one.
I couldn't agree more. Afterwards, it's always nice to go for a little walk and clear one's head.
It's exactly
Heavy
what I'm
stuff.
about to do now. It's exactly what I'm about to do now. I'm going to, just go and literally touch some grass.
That's not a bad idea. I'm going to follow suit here in Canada.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And like I said before, I know this is your absolute final for now, but I look forward to when you can come back.
I can't wait.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, eh? Cheers.